Welcome back to SoCal with Val, where we explore the people, the places, and the passions that make Southern California really shine. Today's episode is truly something special, especially for those of us who love the ocean, its wildlife, and we love protecting the coastal communities. We're diving, no pun intended, into the incredible work of the Pacific Marine Mammal Center in Laguna Beach, a nonprofit that's been rescuing, rehabilitating, and releasing marine mammals for over 50 years. Some of you may have never heard about it. So this will be a really special episode for you. They've saved thousands of sea lions, seals, and other marine life, all while educating thousands of school kids and visitors like us about the ocean conservation. And joining me today is Glenn Gray, CEO of the Pacific Marine Mammal Center, who leads this award-winning organization with heart, innovation, and a vision definitely for the future, and a love for the ocean, of course. So whether you've lived in SoCal your whole life or you're just discovering coastal gems, you won't want to miss what Glenn has to share, especially going into the summertime. He's going to share about sea lions, rescues, volunteer heroes, ocean health, and even how you can get involved if you choose to. So let's get started. Welcome, Glenn Gray, to SoCal with Val.
Thank you, Val. Glad to be here.
Tell us, so first of all, congratulations on being named California's Nonprofit of the Year. So tell us, what does that recognition mean for the center?
Oh, thank you, Val. Yeah, that was quite a pleasant surprise. What happens every year, the state assemblies, so the senators and assembly people get to choose a nonprofit from their respective jurisdictions. And so Senator Strickland selected us. So that put us in a group of 140 not-for-profits out of 1,000 in the state. So it's quite an honor. We certainly cherished it. We, as you said in the beginning, we've been working pretty hard for a little over 50 years. And so it's nice to have that recognition, especially for our employees and our volunteers that really will make it happen.
And that is an award for your district, for your Senate district, or for our county in Orange County? Or
in this particular case, it was we were selected by Senator Strickland for a nonprofit within his district, which for the most part covers the same geographical area that we cover, the coastal area of Orange County.
So that's, does that cover like even Huntington Beach?
Yeah, it actually starts north in Seal Beach.
Oh.
I believe his district fades a bit more inland when we get down towards Dana Point.
Uh-huh. Yeah, it's a big area.
It is.
And I'm sure his nonprofits doesn't just have to be an ocean-oriented.
Oh, no, it could be any. In fact, out of the 140 that were recognized, we were only one of two that were environmentally oriented.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting considering how important the environment is to everybody these
Yeah.
days. But that's great.
Yeah.
That's great to know. What do you think are some of the things that contributed to your recognition?
Well, Senator Strickland had an opportunity to visit us and became more, well, I'll backtrack just a little bit. He's very ocean conservation oriented and animal protection oriented. So I think we resonated with him on both of those levels. And then once he got to know us, he, like most people, we actually have kind of a saying internally. We go, gosh, I didn't know we did that, or I didn't know you did that. We do so many different things. And so, and hopefully your viewers will get an appreciation for that. But that's what happened with Senator Strickland. As we talked, he goes, oh, I didn't know you did that. I didn't know you did that. And so pretty soon he says, okay, that's a pretty obvious choice.
Yeah, that's great. Absolutely. That's wonderful. And you're located in the canyon behind Laguna Beach for our listeners and our viewers.
Sure. So, yes, we're in the Laguna Canyon Road. To kind of put that in context, if you know where the toll road is, about halfway, say, between the toll road and Main Beach.
Okay, the toll road being the 73.
Yes, correct.
Okay. All right, great. And have you been in the same building the whole time?
We've been there since the late 70s. It's we have
A long time.
the little red barn. So, and it's one of those things that people drive by. They go, "Yeah, I've seen that barn. I always mean to stop there. What is it?" So we don't like to be the best kept secret, but sometimes we are. But yeah, it's a well, not so little red barn anymore. We're going under construction, so it's going to be a big red barn. But it's pretty noticeable as you drive through the canyon.
So, can you tell us a little bit about how the Pacific Marine Mammal Center got its start?
Oh, that's a great story. So it started with a young girl walking along the beach in Laguna, and she saw a sea lion in distress, but she wasn't quite sure, but she could tell that it was in distress. She wasn't quite sure what to do about it, so she approached a lifeguard, and that's how it started. So that lifeguard, Jim, took care of that uh, sea lion. Then he brought in his fellow buddy lifeguard, John, and the two of them started taking care of sick, injured sea lions. Initially, just there in Laguna Beach because they were Laguna Beach lifeguards, and from there it grew. John Cunningham and Jim Stouffer are the two gentlemen. John was also shortly after that a teacher at Laguna Beach High School, and so he started to incorporate um, marine biology, marine conservation into his coursework, into his curriculum at the high school. And the funny part of it is when they first started, they were taking these patients home and taking care of them in baby pools in their
Oh my
backyard,
gosh.
if you can imagine that. So quickly, the word caught on. More and more people asked for them to rescue more and more animals. Obviously, they couldn't do that in baby pools in their backyard forever. So they approached
No,
the
not
city,
hardly. Yeah.
and that's how they came into the barn. It was a city property, city of Laguna Beach property that wasn't being used. So they took over the barn, and literally the kids from the high school came down and dug pools uh, originally.
What a great story of community action, right?
Right.
People taking action on something that they see a need. So tell us, how did you get involved?
Well, I got involved through the board. I have to give credit where it's due. First, my wife got involved, and so I was around it, but I was busy in my other career at the time. And there was the board has 6-year term limits, so she was
Oh,
terming out, and the governance committee happened to be meeting at her house that day, saying, "Gosh, Catherine, you're going to term out. Who are we going to get to replace you?" And all of a sudden, the heads kind of looked over at me, and I think I just got volunteered. But it was great. Catherine and I have a real love for the ocean. We're very avid scuba divers, and that was kind of the first connection from diving into the organization. So she termed out. I came on. I was on the board for just about 6 years, and the former CEO resigned, and we're starting to look at the process of recruiting and all that. And my wife said, "Well, why don't you give it a try?" Oh, I forgot a missing piece. I had retired or attempted to retire right at the beginning of the pandemic, which was kind of odd timing. So I was keeping myself busy, especially being on the board of PMMC. Uh, Former CEO left. Fast forward, Catherine said, "Why don't you try it?" I called the chairman. He goes, "Yeah, it's a great idea." So he pulled the rest of the board, and that's how I became CEO about 3 years ago.
3 years ago.
Yeah,
And may I ask what field of work you were in before? What is it all related to anything like this?
absolutely unrelated. I call this my second act. I was a banker for 40 years,
Oh my.
which gave me the opportunity to be the treasurer. If you're a banker and you're on a not-for-profit
Right,
board, you
right.
normally get to be the treasurer, which is a
Yes,
good thing because when you're the treasurer on a board, not-for-profit board, it does give you a better insight into the inner workings of the organization. So
it does.
I
It
did
does.
have that in my favor. So
And also the responsibilities that people sometimes just don't understand how important it is to have certain funds for things. They don't think about it, when you ask for donations, but things do cost money to operate.
yeah,
And especially in the case like this where you trying to save the lives of our little sea animals.
yeah.
So tell us what species specifically you care for.
Sure. Predominantly California sea lions. That's the larger population within sort of our jurisdiction, which is, by the way, we cover the 52-mile coastline of Orange County. So essentially, Seal Beach to San Onofre. So within that, as I mentioned, California sea lions, seals, elephant seals. People often don't think that elephant seals come this far south. They're kind of better known to be up around San Simeon area, but
Uh,
they do make their way down. Harbor seals, occasionally fur seals, and then once in a while, Guadalupe fur seal makes its way up from the Mexican waters. So that kind of covers the seal world, pinniped world. And then we also attend to dolphins, whales, and turtles.
oh, and turtles,
Mhm.
of course. So if when it is rescued or when you find it to be hurt or something,
Mhm.
if it's inside that 56-mile radius, you care for it.
That's right. We do.
'Cause I guess you don't have, like, it's not like you have a mark on or something that says it belongs to the San Francisco Ocean, right?
Well,
I mean, it
look,
doesn't work that way.
if it has been rescued before, so we're called a stranding organization, and
Okay.
we're one of 13 up and down the coast of California. So there's one in San Diego. We cover Orange County, LA, so on and so forth up the coast. And when any of us treat a patient and it's rehabilitated, we're sending it back home to the ocean, we do actually put a little tag. It's not a microchip satellite, but it is a numerical tag. So if they do make a return visit, we can tell from the tag which center organization they came from. Was it us or
Oh,
LA or San Diego? And by number, then we can go into the database and find out, oh, that was this particular sea lion that was rescued on that date and was cured of this particular ailment. So it's a pretty good database.
uh, uh.
But the good news is we don't get too many return patients.
That's what I was gonna ask you. Do you ever have any that come back to you that you say, "Oh, this one is
Yeah,
Johnny here?"
occasionally. In the 3 years though that I've been in this position, we've only had one come back, um, and that was a more recent situation because it was affected by the domoic acid bloom that hit us this past summer. So it wasn't quite thinking clearly.
Yeah. And how has the mission of the center evolved over time?
Well, keeping in mind how it started, it was really just about tending to the sea lions, and then as it grew, it encompassed the rest of those other types of pinnipeds that I mentioned. And then more recently, and I'd say within the last 4 years, we've really taken steps to branch into attending to whales and dolphins in particular. Some we've always attended to the sea turtles, but there aren't that many sea turtles in the Orange County coastline. So it's basically the seals, and now more recently, dolphins and whales. But the other way our mission has really expanded is taking the knowledge that we gain through the rehabilitation phase and translating that two different directions. One, into research, so that we're not just always treating the symptoms, but we're trying to get to the causes. And then the other really fascinating thing is to take that knowledge and incorporate it into our educational curriculum. So in a normal year when we're open, we're temporarily closed right now for construction. Although we still have a hospital that's functioning. We just can't welcome guests right now. But in a regular year, with summer camps and all the outreach we do, we come in contact with over 40,000 kids through our educational programs. So that is a huge shift in terms of kind of our evolution is to take that
Right.
knowledge that we're learning and then really do something meaningful with it.
So do you have situations where you call the center in Dana Point or one up in Carmel or Monterey and say, "We've got a guy here who looks like we can't figure out what the problem is?"
Oh, in terms of if it was a return?
The animals, yeah, we have a turtle that we don't know what this is. He's got a mark on him,
Yeah.
and we don't
Well,
know what
we
it is.
can call them, but there's also a database that we can tap right into. So we can tell from this numerical tag, we can get his whole, it's like medical records, electronic medical records for sea mammals. So we'll know where he was rescued and when, and what he weighed when he came in, and what he weighed when he went out, and
Really?
how what he was treated for. So that might be the starting point. Was it a repeat, or we always do an intake exam, so we have a pretty good idea what we're dealing with right away.
Then do you ever have a situation where you have one that you can't deal with and you send them off to somewhere else?
Sadly, there's some cases where euthanasia is just the more humane action to take, uh,
Uh,
and that unfortunately. occurred more than we like this past several months due to the toxic bloom. So that is an unfortunate outcome. But there's another more interesting, fun outcome. Is sometimes a patient might be with us too long, and they become habituated. They're too comfortable around humans, but they're fine.
Oh,
They're healed, but we can't put them back in the ocean because once they see humans again, they'll think, ah, humans, food. I'll go there. So we try to find them a forever home, which is an aquarium. So we have some of our
oh,
former patients in aquariums all over the country.
is that right?
Yeah. We just sent one
How
late
fun.
last year, to the Smithsonian. Yeah,
Oh, how fun.
yeah,
What a great experience.
yeah.
It must give you a warm heart to feel that you're passing them on to someone they're gonna have a good home and
Oh, absolutely, and we stay in touch, and they send us, webcam videos, and then when, people are traveling, "Hey, I wanna go see so and so at the Smithsonian or at the Atlanta Aquarium," or whatever.
what a great what a great story, how fun that would be.
Yeah,
Um, and especially if you know that it's travel, I've seen a movie about a penguin who goes back to its home, so
yeah,
it's just how rewarding to be able to know that you have a connection with those animals as well.
yeah,
Because I think people don't see them as ho I is you're that you're able to have a relationship with them, right? Or how do you build the relationship with a sea lion?
yeah.
But I'm sure that there are ways that you communicate with them.
Yeah, the challenging part is to not get too involved, so that we don't habituate them. But, oh my gosh, they're almost like having puppies, you know?
Is it?
They're
Yes,
so cute, and they're vocal, and they play, uh,
yes,
but we have to be careful not to make it too comfortable.
yes, yes, the sea lions are definitely vocal.
Yeah.
Yeah, there have been. Before we get off this topic, though, I do have to ask you, we've heard recently about the whales that have come you know, come up to the beach
Yeah.
and have died
Mm.
either before or when they arrived on our beaches here in Southern California in Orange County, correct?
Correct, yes, we've had 4.
Has there been any, does anybody come up with any reasons for those? We heard some theories, but those of us who aren't involved in it as closely as you are wouldn't follow it as much as you do.
Yeah. A couple of them are still being, researched. We unfortunately, when a whale, ends up on the beach, it's pretty much game over. They've come there to pass away peacefully. So what we try to do, if it's possible, if the crowds will allow us, we send in a team to do, basically an autopsy. And we
Oh,
we take samples and have those samples analyzed. And so of the 4 relatively recent, whale beachings, I say within the last, say, 4 months or so, we have received information back on 2 out of those 4, that the contributing factor of the cause of death was what they were eating, this toxic, bloom. We think in one of the other cases, it might have been a boat strike, um,
oh,
which, hampered it, because keep in mind, the migration of the whales that we're dealing with in Orange County or in LA are traveling through the shipping channels, and there's,
right.
a lot of traffic
Correct.
out there, and
Correct.
if you've ever seen the bow of a, seagoing ship, you don't notice it from above water, but below, there's a very bulbous sort of point underneath the water, and sometimes the whales get caught on that, and they just
Mm.
fall off. So
Aw, that's so
in one
sad.
that was, the cause of death.
And are you the only source in Orange County for these kind of things? If someone finds a sea animal on the beach, are you the one they call?
Yeah, for Orange County, we are. Yeah.
And then you have teams that are available any time of the day or night to go out and help.
We don't typically rescue at dark, because it can be dangerous, but from
Okay.
sunup to sunset, we are busy. Yeah. We have a fleet of trucks. I'd like to kinda refer to them as our ambulances, and, they are on call for that good, what, almost 18 hours.
Uh, and do you have situations where you find that one of them is caught in a net or something and you're able to free them and get them back out?
Sometimes, yeah. Now, if they're caught, we try not to, go into the water to rescue them, because they're very unpredictable, they're very strong. Imagine a super big butterfly net, that we're capturing them with, but
Yes.
they have so much power and torque, they could pull our rescue right into the water with them. So we try to be very careful. We try to, the vast majority of our rescues are on the beach or very close to it, maybe in the surf line. Even in the harbors, we try not to do too much on the docks unless they're area where it's not imminent that they're going to jump back into the water. Again, it's just the unpredictability of the animals.
But the idea is to cut the net off of them,
So
right? To
so
keep
yeah,
it.
so if we can get them, and we're quite successful at doing that, we've seen them entangled with fishing nets, um, like the plastic containers for like a 6 pack of Pepsi or whatever. Sometimes those get trapped around their necks. The old monoline fishing line will get caught around them. Um, with dolphins and whales, it's a much, much bigger situation. In fact, we kind of going back to your earlier question about how we've evolved, we're now part of a whale disentanglement team that is authorized under the jurisdiction of NOAA. Um, and so we will be part of a team that goes out on the water to actually disentangle a whale that may have a gill net wrapped around its fluke. That's an amazing, I mean, it's heart-wrenching to see, but it's so rewarding, when we see that gill net come off of them.
Oh, I'm sure.
Yeah,
I'm sure. I'm sure. And you just can only imagine how frustrating it must be for that animal to not be able to move
yeah. We
and how afraid they must be.
we tracked one last year, for 4 days that traveled up and down the coast of Orange County, until we could get close enough. It just basically had to get a little bit more tired to allow us to
Oh,
but it's a very coordinated effort with about 4 boats, and then we have a very fast, think of it in terms of the kind of boats you might imagine a Navy SEAL team uses, right? That gets us in very close. We have drone operators keeping tabs of the whale so we know where it's at. And then we get in there. The very trained people that we have get in there with what kind of looks like a tree trimming device, where you pull the lever and we can
right.
sever
Yes.
those gill nets off of it. Yeah.
And these people are your rescuers, your team, these people that do this all the time, or do they have other jobs and this is what
These
they
people work
get to
full time.
do?
Well, we do have some volunteers that are, qualified to go out on these rescues as well, but the lead people on the rescues are our own employees, full-time employees.
So this is not a task for like the harbor master, right? The
No,
har
they may assist though, because like I said, sometimes if we're trying to not corral, but keep track of a whale as it's traveling, we get an amazing amount of volunteers. I mean, we'll have the whale watching boats. A lot of times that's where the initial call for help comes in because they're out doing their, whale watching with their clients, and they'll see something. So they'll call in, they'll give us the coordinates. Sometimes Harbor Patrol will go out to keep an eye on it, and then we come out and then we've affectionately called the PMMC fleet. It's just volunteers with boats. We put a call out, and if they're available and their boats available, they'll come out and help keep an eye on things.
Great stories. Gosh, I you we this stuff must happen, but you never really get the chance to talk to someone like you
Yeah.
who's involved in it every day. So tell us about your expansion. You mentioned it a little bit earlier that you're building a larger facility or you're doing some tell us what that is and what's it going to look like.
So, it's got, 2 really important components to it. The main well, I'll refer to as the barn, well, I used to call it the little red barn, now the big red barn. Um, so the educational area in that will double, and the hospital, part of it will also double in size. So we're gonna be able to, from an education point of view, run, larger and more frequent summer camps. And then from a treatment area, our treatment rooms are gonna be larger, more sophisticated. And we're also what we formerly had 7 pools. We took all those out. We're putting in 10 new pools that are completely plumbed differently into a water recycling reclamation facility, which we've never had before. Until that opens in a few months, We have for years just been doing what we call dump and fill. So as the pools get soiled, dirty, the water needs to be changed, we dump it, refill it. That meant we went through a lot of water. We're the second largest water user in the city of Laguna Beach, second only to the city. And you think about it, they have, baseball fields and parks and, lots of
Sure.
areas. So we were using a lot of water, about 5 million gallons a year. So this
Wow.
water rec facility is going to enable us to recycle upwards of 90% of that water.
That's incredible.
That's huge. So, double the size of the education, much more enhanced hospital and the water reclamation facility. But we're very excited about getting back home.
Yeah, and it's very environmentally more than not friendly isn't the right word, but it's certainly giving back to the environment because after all, you're involved in
Exactly.
saving the oceans and saving the oceans from the animals. So to be able to salvage that water
Yeah.
and make sense out of that is also certainly important.
Yeah.
Um, so having the new red barn, was this built with donations?
Strictly donations. Yeah. Yeah. We're entirely, well, I won't say entirely. It's kind of the good thing now with government funding being in doubt. We were not very vulnerable to that. Only about 5% of our total budget was government grants, which were not guaranteed year over year. So uh,
Of course not.
they never were. So the good thing is we learned to survive without them. So we're entirely dependent on donations. We do not charge our visitors, to come into our visitor yard. We're not like an aquarium. There's no admission.
So you have just fundraising events, or you have private citizens who care so much about your cause
Mhm.
that they're donors?
Yeah, we're very fortunate. We have a donor group that is very loyal, but we're always adding new people. Every month. A lot of people donors will start with us. They'll buy a brick in the yard for $200, and it's
Oh my.
an enjoyable experience for them, and they can come in and see their name. And we've had people say, "Well, I'll just give me $10 every once in a while," and then they enjoy the story, and then it just builds and builds and builds. So we're very, very dependent and grateful to the donors, most of which are individuals, families, some family offices. We don't have a big sort of corporate donor platform. We're working on that. We think there's an opportunity there because a lot of companies are becoming more environmentally conscious, ocean
Yes,
conscious. So there's
yes,
opportunities there for us.
yes. But as a matter of fact, the person who introduced us leading up to today's interview happens to be one of your donors, and his
Right.
family spends time there. They love it there. And my assistant here in our company said, "Oh, my granddaughter loves it there. She goes there as often as she can."
Yeah.
So we had some ties here that we didn't even
Do that
really
all
know
the time.
about.
We love it. Yeah.
When you talk about your excuse me, your education programs, tell us what that is.
Okay. Well, it kind of has three different forms. On site, what I find is the most enjoyable is the summer camps. The kids come in on a Monday and they're kind of shy, and we take them through and they get to learn a lot about marine biology, and they get to go see the patients, and they have some lab work, and by Friday they're just crazy having fun. um, so that's
And how old are these is this
they're
group?
elementary school,
Okay.
up to about freshman grade. We're trying to work and develop our curriculum to keep it fresh and to offer things that might be of more interest for those in high school. But when kids get to be at that age, they have so many different things going on, and we're not trying to compete with that. So our niche is really elementary school, and in fact, just prior to our closure for construction, we received number one place for kids and number one place for kids with respect to STEM education in Orange County. So we must be doing something right on that. So that's the on-site stuff.
Yes.
Then we do outreach where we go to the schools or to community events, and then the third element is we broadcast like this. We broadcast into hospitals. That's an amazing program. Uh,
You broadcast into.
Children's hospitals. So we do a collaboration with Ryan Seacrest Studios. So
Really?
Seacrest Foundation funds and builds studios, production studios like this, into children's hospitals, and then it's there to accept, programming, and we're one of the programs that beams into these children's hospitals. So we're coming in contact with kids all over the country. We have 18 hospitals that we beam our content into, and we send them out a little kit ahead of time. That's kind of you can follow along. It's educational. It's fun. There's a little plushie, and we tell the stories of our patients. And these kids are in hospital. They're dealing with their own personal situation,
Certainly.
but they hear the story of our patients and our patients getting better, and so it gives them some hope and encouragement. It's a wonderful program. Love it.
And how is that broadcast? Is it like on a YouTube channel or
Well, right now I'll say up until our reopening, it's basically been kind of through Zoom. But part of our new building, we're actually creating a real production studio.
and are these like 1-hour programs, 1-hour classes?
Yeah, about an hour, because you got to figure the kids are, they're in a hospital and they've got a lot of things going on, and you got to keep their attention for a while. But yeah, they're about an hour program.
I wonder if there wouldn't also be an audience among people who are older and unable to go out, who are also loving this. They grew up near the ocean, people who've who either have grown up or who just love the ocean and see animals and wouldn't also find this fascinating.
I think you're absolutely right. I think the opportunities on the broadcast are huge, and so when we designed our new building, or not new building, but redone building, we actually are creating a dedicated broadcast studio. So our intent is to have live um, programming, as well as a YouTube channel, and perhaps also throw in some podcast as well.
I'd certainly like to talk to you about that.
Yep.
I think I have some opportunities we could expand into that area. So this year, tell me, and I'm sorry that I don't know, I may not even use the right terms,
Okay.
and I certainly am not the expert on this that you are, but I know that a lot of people have heard a few words and are curious, just as I am. So this year, there have been reports of, is it Domoic
You got it.
acid algae blooms impacting marine wildlife in Southern California.
Yeah.
So tell us, first of all, what does that mean? What is it? What does it look like? And what role has your center played in responding to this?
Okay, thank you. It's been a huge issue this year. So domoic acid is a fancy term for toxic algae, and it used to happen every once in a while, sort of the shift between El Nino and La Nina years, and,
Yes.
and but there's no pattern like that anymore. We were hit pretty bad 2023. 24 was mild, but it was unusual in that it was a successive year, and then this year it happened again, and this year it was the worst on record. Why? What the basic cause of it is it's an upwelling of currents that bring nutrients that are deeper, closer to the surface, into the feeding zone. This year, that started in late March. Back in 2023, we weren't impacted by it until June. This year, it started earlier, lasted longer, and sadly, one of the coincidental issues was the fires in LA. So if
Oh,
out that pink fire retardant that
oh,
on it, that fire
of course.
retardant is basically water and fertilizer. And shortly after the fires were extinguished, there was that the atmospheric river conditions of rain brought that runoff down. So I mentioned earlier that there's several different stranding organizations up and down the coast. There's one in Malibu. They were absolutely crushed,
Oh,
the patients. And then as the currents brought that nutrient-rich fertilizer into the algae bloom area, LA got hit, and then we got hit, and then San Diego. San Diego's got that plus the pollution from the Tijuana River, so they get kind of a double whammy. But for us, we saw a huge influx of animals being affected by this toxic algae. So what happens? The algae is fertilized to a point where it's toxic. The algae is eaten by the smaller, the fish. The smaller fish eaten by the bigger fish eaten by the seals. So by the time, and not just the seals, the dolphins and the whales. So by the time they're eating something that has a high concentration of this toxicity.
Ah,
How it manifests itself is through a kind of a neurological imbalance, a seizure.
really?
Yeah. I equated it to, I had a pet dog a while back that was prone to seizures. And it's horrible. I mean, there's very little you can do. They're your best friend. One moment, they're going through a seizure. They don't know you. They don't want to see you. They would bite your hand if you got near it. You just have to
Yes.
kind of let it take its course. Almost the same thing, when you see the sea lions. So they would come onto the beach and go into a seizure. Or another interesting way to tell is we call it stargazing. Normally seals are fairly active, or unless they're completely just asleep.
They are.
Uh, but they'd be stargazing. They'd be kind of sitting there and just literally gazing up and not moving. So that's a good sign that something's going on. So that gives us an opportunity to rescue them. If we get to them early enough in their toxicity stage, let's call it that, we can treat them. Basically, the toxin is a water soluble toxin, so we just flush it out, much like you might have a drip IV in the hospital. We
Right.
try to
Yep.
flush that toxicity out of their body. And if we can get to them quickly enough, we get that protocol going, we can save them. This past year, April, May, into the first part of June, our batting average was not what it used to be because the severity of the toxicity, and it was affecting a lot of females that were with baby. They weren't full term; they were 4 to 5 months pregnant, which meant
Uh,
that the fetus was also affected by that
uh,
toxicity uh, through the uterus. So it was a rough year this year.
and then, so those mostly they were animals that had swam down the coast, and then they just started eating it as they got into this area?
Yeah, well, they could be animals that are fairly territorial. I mean, we know seals travel great distances. They'll go all the way out to Channel Islands and come here and go up and down. But the issue that they had, whether they were in the waters off of Orange County or LA or up by Malibu, the feeding zone that they typically swim through was the zone that was being so affected by this toxic algae. And it wasn't just the seals, that's that same feeding zone that the dolphins and the whales were traveling through. Now, some species of whales, as they migrate back to Alaska, they're just migrating. They don't even eat. But some
Oh,
species of whales do eat while they're traveling. And that's when I mentioned earlier, 2 of those 4 whales that you referenced, we think, a contributing factor to their death was eating that toxic algae.
and even as large a creature as they are,
Right. But imagine how much they consumed.
well, because it was so concentrated, it
Exactly.
was all in one area. Everything that was there was
It
contaminated,
was like a smorgasbord, but it was contaminated.
but it was all bad for you.
Right. And we've never
Yeah,
had
that was
that problem with whales before, nor dolphins. One or 2 in a season, but this year, the dolphins were very vulnerable.
so
So
what are some of the I'm sorry, go
go
ahead.
ahead, go ahead.
What are some of the threats facing the mammals right now, and what are you able to do to get in front of those problems?
Well, usually when I'm asked that, I don't mean to be insulting by this comment, but most of what our patients are dealing with and what we're in turn dealing with is unfortunate human behavior. So we're allowing the oceans to warm up, which is causing this toxicity to occur more often. We allow far too much runoff of pollution, setting aside the fire issue, which is a very unique circumstance. just
Right.
normal runoff fertilizer, people that use, in their own yards, it makes its way down to the ocean. Plastics are horrible. Um, we have patients that, especially if they're having trouble finding food and they're desperate, they'll eat things. I mean, they'll eat rocks, they'll eat plastic. And then you mentioned earlier about the entanglement. They'll get entanglements around plastics. All that is human caused. Um, you know, I know people love for release parties or reveal parties. I mean, they'll let the balloons go, but those helium balloons, they get out a little bit offshore, they fizzle out, they come down. It looks like a jellyfish to a seal. Seal eats it.
Oh, really?
It's that balloon in its throat.
Um,
So we deal with that. Um, as a part of our protocol now, we started a couple of years ago. Once we got an X-ray machine, we X-ray every patient upon intake, just as a part of the protocol. And sadly, almost 30% of our patients have been shot. Now, that might not be why they're in the hospital because they're incredibly resilient. They've got a fair amount of blubber, but almost 30% of them have been shot.
I'm listening to you talk and so fascinated by the story, but also how much your life must have changed when you got involved with this.
It's totally different. Yeah.
And you talk about things that, it's something you know about and you're passionate about it, and
Yeah.
10 years ago, it was probably
It's
a
devastating.
foreign language.
Yeah. To go from banking to this was quite a change, but I'm really enjoying it.
And it must be just, so gratifying to be able to make a difference, in these beautiful sea animals,
Yeah.
these amazing creatures.
Well, if some of your viewers have probably seen a release, that is such an uplifting experience. It's when our patients are healthy and it's time for them to go home, and we take them down to the beach, and it's usually a really fun experience. We have donors who have supported us, or school kids who have adopted a patient, and they'll come down and they'll release. They'll open the gate, and we'll watch anywhere from 1 to 7, scamper out, hit the surf, and off they go. It's rewarding.
And is it always done at the main beach in Laguna?
No, actually, we do most of them at the Aliso Creek beach.
Oh, you do?
Reason being, it's very accessible. We can pull our trucks right up next to the beach. So we transport our patients in basically large dog kennels. So we can be right there at the beach and unload them and set them free from the beach. Now, that's for seals and sea lions. For the elephant seals, they're much larger. By the time they're healthy, they're in the 350 pound range. And they're not very mobile on a
Yeah.
sandy beach. So we'll take them out by sea. So I mentioned earlier we have this wonderful group of volunteers that donors as well that own boats, and they will allow us to load up anywhere from 2 to 4 elephant seals, and we take them out several miles and release them at sea. They Elephant seals are not necessarily beach dwellers. They like the deep ocean, so that's a good place to let them go home.
If someone you have these opportunities for people to get involved. So do you have, like, can someone like us come there and visit you?
Yeah, once we're back open, our visitor yard is open every day. Absent like Christmas, a couple of holidays, but from 10 to 4, we're open. You can come in free. If we have patients, I mentioned in the remodel there'll be 10 pools. 4 of those will be very visible to the public. A couple of them aren't, where we keep our more highly acute patients. But those who are nearing their release dates, they're very visible to the visitors. And there's docents there in the visitor yard that will explain this is Lucy. She came in, at 25 pounds a couple of months ago, dealing with dehydration, and now she's weighing 60 pounds. And you can see the before and the after, and then you can get to see them frolicking around. One of the really fun things we're going to have when we reopen is one of the pools will actually have a viewing window. It's kind of lower so that the kids can kind of walk down a couple of steps and view into the pool to see the seals kind of frolicking around. I refer to that as kind of our pre-release pool. Those are the healthiest ones. They're getting ready to go home. They're probably going to go home within the next couple of weeks. They're fed differently. They're not tossed food. They have to compete because in a few days, a week, they're going to be out in the real
They're
world.
going to be out on their own, sure.
So we just throw the food into the pool and they have to compete. It's really fun to watch.
And so adults can come with or without children?
Sure. Oh yeah. We have a lot of adults that come through. Um, and I think it's going to, once we reopen, it's even going to be a little bit better for adults because we're changing kind of the information that we make available in the visitor yard, tiering it to a lot of different types of audiences, not just for the kids. I mentioned earlier that we take the knowledge that we've gained from what we doing in the hospital for the treatments, and that makes its way into our educational curriculums. But it also is an element of our research. We do an awful lot of research, both by ourselves and in collaboration with other organizations, universities around the country. So there'll be displays about our research work, which will probably be a little bit more interesting to the adults.
So are you contacted regularly by universities or
Mhm.
other facilities that that have needs for information you might be able to offer?
We are. In fact, we joke a little bit that we're kind of a parts hoarder, and I don't mean that in a bad way, but um, when we do autopsies or they're technically called necropsies, but that's basically an autopsy on an animal. We take a lot of samples, and we have several of the sub 80-degree freezers full of samples. And give you an example, we didn't know for sure, but we thought it would make a good idea to take nasal swabs during the pandemic. And so we have a sample of that. And sure enough, the university was making some calls and said, by any chance, did you happen to take nasal swabs? Yeah, we got a freezer full of them. Yeah. So, but now it's not just by chance. People know us now,
Yes.
leading research universities. They know what we do and that we have these freezers. And so we get contacted regularly to collaborate on research. More local, University of California, Irvine, well, not exactly, Davis, um, uh, uh, San Diego State. So we do a lot of collaborations with them.
Of the other facilities, centers, I'll call them, that are similar to yours up and down the coast, is yours set aside from any of the others by any certain characteristics or things that you do?
Yeah, there's one other one up in Sausalito that is similar to us. The two of us are noticeably different, larger, and more diverse because of the educational components and the research components. Most of the others, they may have a little bit of education or a little bit of research, but they don't have the breadth of what we do or the one up in Sausalito. And the other thing that makes that a distinction for Sausalito and us is we're teaching locations. So if you're a vet intern, or you're a vet, you want to have an intern for marine mammals. There's not a lot of places to go. If you're a vet and you want to
Yeah,
treat domestic animals or farm animals, even zoo
there's
animals,
lots.
there's places to go. But if you want to treat marine mammals, there's not very many places you can go to get that kind of training. So we're, I believe, one of four in the country where you can a vet intern can get that type of training.
Is that right? So what is your vision for your center?
Well,
There probably are 2. One probably is your personal one, and probably is that of your board.
yeah, no. Well, being a former board member, they're pretty much in sync. But I noticed on our time, I don't have time to tell you everything. But I'd say where we're at right now, we're on the cusp of doing some great things. I can't wait for us to get back in to take advantage of our new hospital and the ability that then gives us to do more advanced type of animal care. And then the education that I talked about, the water reclamation I talked about, and then the on water part is to me, one of the most fascinating aspects of our future. being able to get out on the water and do health assessments, not just necessarily coming to the rescue of a whale or a dolphin, but to monitor them. So we're creating a drone program. We actually, through Cal State Fullerton, has a drone program now. We have 2 licensed drone operators, and they're continuing their education to get higher levels of licensing. So we'll be able to go out and monitor the health vis-a-vis drones of whales and dolphins. And I think that opens up a world of research for us.
And is that new to this field?
Yes, very new, very new. Yeah. Yeah,
Would it normally be done by universities, or is that something that a
not
center
even
like yours
by
would do?
universities yet. It's a function of the drone technology that's gotten better, and
Sure, yeah, absolutely, that's incredible. Yeah.
and the cameras now that can be placed into the drones. We even are aware now with the technology of being able to have a drone can tell us the size, weight of a whale. We can put, I'm going to oversimplify it, but imagine like a petri dish connected to the drone that can capture a whale's breath, and we can get a DNA print on that.
Oh gosh, that's fascinating. That would be amazing, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it's
And I learned when I was I learned when I was on an Alaskan cruise that every whale has the back of their tail is different,
yes,
kind of like a fingerprint.
yeah, and similarly in a dolphin, that dorsal, it's like a fingerprint. It's unique.
Is that right?
Yeah, we're
Yeah,
creating
so
a dolphin spotter program for people to just, if you're at the beach, you can even with a simple iPhone, given the proximity of the dolphins, you can take a picture of that and load it to this dolphin spotter app, and be a dolphin spotter, and you know, contribute to that database.
so if your center had a mascot or a poster animal, what would it be?
It's Sammy. He's actually on loan at the Santa Ana airport.
Is that right?
Yes. Because of our closure, we have this beautiful statue of Sammy the sea lion, and we didn't want him to get hurt with or damaged with all the construction. So we lent him to the airport. So he's down at baggage thing. Well, they actually were moving him around. It was hilarious. We got some pictures as they were moving Sammy around. He was sitting at the sushi bar for one of the
Of course,
pictures, and
of course.
there was a gentleman who didn't quite understand that this was a setup picture. And he goes, "Oh my God, there's a seal at the sushi bar." They took him down to one of the gift shops, and they put a hat on him, and the kids love it. So that's our mascot. And we actually have when we attend events, we have our mascots in costume. We have some young volunteers that will dress up as a seal and sea lion.
And our little question of trivia for the afternoon: if the sea lion could talk, what do you think it would tell us?
Food, give me more.
Is that right? Is that right?
Yeah.
We have sea lions close to where we live, and they talk to us often.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not us, they talk to everybody, and we happen to be there.
Yeah.
Glenn Gray, this has been delightful, entertaining, and informational. So much information. I certainly can't wait to come and look at your center, and I certainly will be a visitor
Yes.
when your new facility is completed. And I really would like to talk to you about how we can do some fun things for seniors as well. So we want to thank you for sharing not only the mission of your center, but the heart behind it, from life saving and rescues to cutting edge conservation to all the things that you do with your heart, and how we can help you. So for anyone who would like to visit them, we're going to have the information down here on the bottom, how you can find them. And remember that SoCal with Val is your place for discovering people and places that make life here so special, so interesting, so fascinating, why we love living in Southern California. So until next time, stay kind, stay coastal, keep exploring, and thank you, Glenn, so much for being with us today on SoCal with Val.
Thanks, Val. Appreciate it. It's fun.